We have a lot. We have a lot of content that we want to cover, so I think it's best that I get going. So I thought this was an interesting quote and sort of a good way to start off our session today. It's from the chief economist at Google. The ability to take data, to be able to understand it, to process it, to extract value from it, to visualize it, to communicate it, that's going to be a hugely important skill in the next decades. So I tend to agree on that. And in fact, today we're going to focus in on one of those skills specifically, and you'll see about that shortly. So before we get into um, our own specific webinar, I'd like to just share the calendar of events for this week. SAP has an entire schedule of events, and this week we're the first session in a series of sessions. So Evan was talking about the Learning Hub Student Edition, and that's on the 13th. But before that, there's a great seminar on SAP DataSphere and ERP Sim and Business Builder. So I think they're all going to be excellent sessions, and I hope you'll be able to attend them. Um, so I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Powell. I have over 20 years of industry experience in supply chain and operations management. I've worked across many different industries and firms. And in the last 5 years, I've started teaching at Conestoga College. And when I began teaching here at the college, I was fortunate enough to be introduced right away to my colleague, Stephen Thomson. And Stephen Thomson actually is a mentor for me. So he's going to, I think, be able to share with you his official titles and work experience and research experience. But I'll tell you that within the Conestoga College community, he's also informally recognized as our analytics go-to and as a mentor for myself, matters relating to analytics and teaching as well. So I am quite grateful that Stephen invited me to participate today. And I wonder if it looks like Stephen might be able to introduce himself.
I
Let's
think
see.
so. Can you hear me now, Sarah?
Yes, you're all
Okay. And
set.
I am so sorry, everyone, for the audio problems during our test this morning. Everything worked. I had to reboot. So thanks for that wonderful introduction. And again, sorry for the little hiccup, but these do happen, I guess, eh? And thanks, Sarah. Were you finished introducing yourself?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Over to
Okay,
you.
great. And do you mind just running actually, you know what? I'll just switch over my share if that's okay.
Certainly.
Yeah, thanks. I need to just get caught up on where we are here. So again, thanks very much, Sarah. My name is Stephen Thomson. Prior to joining the Conestoga College, I spent 20 years supporting supply chain professionals with IT and analytics. I was both, I was an IT manager. I worked for an ERP company, Epicor. Also, then started my own business doing business analytics. And one of the projects I just want to quickly share that I'm most excited about was working with a global automotive company, Flexingate. And what we accomplished was a 8 country, 13 system integration of procurement around the world to give Flexingate a picture of what was happening globally and a consolidated picture of their purchasing. So that was pretty exciting. Just wanted to share that with you. I spent the last 20 years, 21 years working at Conestoga, teaching IT analytics in our supply chain programs. I've also had the pleasure of being our SAP faculty coordinator, and we'll talk a little bit about how the faculty coordinator supports SAC implementations. And as well, I've had the the experience of being our director for our research center in supply chain innovation. Currently, my applied research is in predictive analytics and also relating to sustainability reporting. So this would be mandatory reporting using frameworks and internal reporting as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about our use of SAP and the University Alliance program at Conestoga College, because it's something that we're really proud of and something that's taken a lot of people, a lot of work to put together. So we started in 2017 and we looked at what was the strategic direction of the School of Business? How did we want to differentiate ourselves? And one of those ways was to look at bringing in technology and having a real focus on applied learning. So we started with one course, and it was myself, Applied Execution and Control, using the Global Bike and would have been S3, not S4 HANA. And until today, and moving till today, what we have is our current usage is we still have some R3, but we use S4 Global Bike in our business processes courses. We use ERP Sim extensively across supply chain, cost accounting courses in our business processes courses, and Analytics Cloud, of course, which we'll be talking about today, spread throughout all of our analytics courses. We also use success factors, and that's something that's really exciting. One of our faculty here have been working with the University of Victoria, and we have integrated that success factors into our HRIS courses. So currently we have 20 faculty across 13 courses and three different schools using SAP. So we're really excited about that. And as I mentioned, we use it in our 2-year diplomas, 3 years, our 4-year degree, and our postgrad programs as well. Now, digging in a little further in terms of how we use business analytics and how we framed our approach to business analytics at Conestoga College, it really this really comes down, and we can describe it through this framework that I've developed. And if we take a look at this, the analytics framework, as I mentioned, what we start with essentially is our, if we think of the ETL, the data collection process, and the pieces within there from extraction, transforming, and loading to data governance. And then we move into kind of a 3-step process, looking at, in a business context, we want to know what is going on, what context and what difference does that make? So we have the what, we have the so what, and the now what, which is the predictive analytics. So from that perspective, then we've developed our courses using that. And what you'll see in a series of our courses is some courses focus on the data collection, preparation, and exploration. Some focus all the way up to visualizations. And then some also move towards the predictive and prescriptive. So depending on the level of study, we can integrate them all or bits and pieces. We thought this would be just of some interest in terms of our participants today with us. What we have is 3/4 of our participants, registrants anyway, are from the US. About 15 to 20% are from Canada. And of course, we welcome the rest of you from all around the world, which is great. In terms of years teaching with SAP, we certainly have some new faculty, and we hope that this presentation certainly provides you with a lot of information, all the way up to 15 years teaching with SAP. We could all probably learn something from those folks as well. And then if we just take a look at the disciplines, what we have is, information systems, about 50% supply chain analytics and finance. All right. Okay, so we have our first intro, our first survey. And again, Sarah, maybe you can help me. How do we launch? Oh, there we go. We launched the surveys. So we'd just like to know if you could let us know what level of teaching do you currently engage in at your school? And so if we could have the folks, if we could have the participants take this poll, that'd be great. I'm not sure how we see the results of that, but we'll just give everyone a minute here.
Maybe this would be a good time for me to jump in very quickly and say, when I was doing introductions, I forgot someone who's going to be very important for Stephen and I today. So we have, I guess, a student assistant, and her name is Kate Gross. And so when Stephen said, how do we get this survey? Kate made that happen. So I suspect Kate will be the one who could share the results.
Okay, that's awesome. Thanks. So we'll just give everyone a minute there. And maybe as you're doing that, I'm just going to move on for sake of time. So in this session today. The session is not a how to use SAP Analytics Cloud, it's how to integrate it. And we will take a little bit look at SAP Analytics Cloud, but for those of you that have not used the full suite of the features and SAC, I just wanted to mention a couple before we move on with our content. In terms of Analytics Cloud, it is a cloud-based platform that's part of the unified SAP Business Data Cloud. So what that means is there's no complex installations for you, your students, or your school, and you can access the software anywhere where you have an internet and a browser. Some of the key features, great and extensive data visualization tools, dashboards, reports, data stories, augmented analytics. So automated insights and predictive forecasting. Again, if we look at, moving towards predicting, that's great. Planning and budgeting and simulations, as well as collaboration tools. So all these tools that are used in business. All right, so here we have just the results of the poll. Thanks for sharing those. Let me just bring these up. So we have, whoop, and I lost it. Okay. Well, we'll come maybe back to that poll a bit later. It popped up quickly and then then it left. But it looked like the majority of the people on this call today are teaching at the degree level. So that's just great to know. Our learning outcomes for today, by the end of the session, what we hope is that you're able to look at overcoming any barriers leading to the adoption and the integration of SAC into your courses. We want to certainly expose you to the best practices that we've learned by using SAC and applied learning and reflections to enhance your curriculum. Understand how to, order SAC access, how to set up the folder structure to support your classroom management, your students and yourself, and then leading to adopting SAC into your own curriculum. So our agenda is first, we're going to look at the barriers of teaching with supply chain analytics. Again, we're going to talk a little more detail about how we've integrated SAC into a specific course, how to set up the course with an exercise demonstration, looking at best practices, and then last but not least, our call to action. And I think at this point, okay, we were going to ask this poll. Okay, so maybe again, Kate, I'll get you to launch this poll. And then I'm going to hand this over to Sarah.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, I think while this poll, while folks are thinking about this poll, I think I'm going to get started. So when Stephen and I developed this webinar, one of the things that we thought about was what were the issues that we faced when Stephen, who launched the use of SAC in our curriculum, what are the kinds of things that we faced as problems or things that might have prevented us from successfully executing SAC? So we categorized them into 6 main areas that either were problematic or we thought they might be problematic in integrating SAC into our curriculum. And the first barrier, if you will, was a knowledge gap, a potential knowledge gap for our educators. So do all of our professors understand how to actually use the product? So that's something that we did contend with, and we have some solutions. We were also very concerned about curriculum alignment, and that's something that we're very purposeful with in our curriculum alignment and course design here at Conestoga College. So that's actually the first thing we're going to talk through in this presentation. Technical issues is another potential barrier. So really, how do we go about setting this up so that we can use it in a classroom setting? And we're going to hear from Stephen Thomson a little bit later on this morning, and he's got an excellent session planned on how we can overcome those challenges. Time constraints. So we all face time constraints in our day-to-day teaching lives, and to take on a new piece of curriculum or to integrate a new technology into your existing curriculum, quite frankly, takes time. So we have some suggestions around that, ways that you can fast track, if you will. We also have change inertia, or, we just get into a comfort zone and we might not necessarily want to make some changes. So we're going to talk about that. And then finally, student-based challenges. So making or strategies to help with student engagement and learning. Okay, so we're going to walk through, or we're going to talk through today each of these barriers, and really what we're going to focus on is solutions or ways for us to overcome these barriers. Okay, um, so as I've just very briefly described them, I wonder if I could invite Kate to launch a poll whereby I'll allow each of you to rank these barriers. Which ones do you think, either in your learning environment or in your experience, are going to be the most significant barriers? So you can, for each of these barriers, you can pick if it's a significant barrier, somewhat, or just really a small concern. And while you're thinking about that, as I mentioned, the very first barrier that we're going to look at is curriculum alignment. And so the way that we're going to look at the way that we're going to tackle this barrier is with an example from Conestoga College. So Stephen and I both teach at Conestoga College, so that is, of course, why we picked a course here. And the course that we're going to do a deep dive on, or really sort of drill into the details of, is a course that Stephen Thomson developed and that I have subsequently taught for a few years now. And it's a business analytics course. And that is within a program called the Supply Chain and Operations Management Program. So if I recall correctly, I think about a quarter of our participants are in the supply chain field. So this will be very near and dear to your hearts. And so we're going to walk through a real world example of how we teach with SAC here at Conestoga College. We will focus on the benefits of applied learning. That's something that we focus on in all of our courses, and particularly this course. And it's part of our cadence of instruction, or cadence of learning, I think is a better way of phrasing it. So what are the barriers that we encountered, and what solutions were most effective? And then throughout our journey, we've put together what we would call our best practices, and we're going to share those with you today. So in terms of the program, I just want to give you a little bit of context before we dive into this specific course to see how we've integrated SAC into that course. So it is a supply chain and operations management course. It's an undergraduate level of study at an applied polytechnic college. And so Stephen and I are dialing in from Kitchener, Ontario, Canada, and that's about an hour west of Toronto. And in the Ontario system, we have colleges that are really applied learning environments. And so that's the context. And this program is offered through the School of Business. And students coming to this course are expected, and indeed have a prerequisite, that they have some familiarity with what I would call basic data analysis, usually within an Excel program. So once they complete this course, they do go on to complete 2 more terms of study. And throughout those upcoming terms of study, the expectation is that they apply the learning from this course in future courses. And so that learning is reinforced. The focus of this course is to develop business analytics skills that students will be able to take with them and use in their future courses, but even more importantly, in their careers. So the specific course that we're going to take a look at is a business analytics course, and we've got the code there. And the description is really around, and the description actually reminds me of that quote that we opened today's session with, because what we're really focusing on is practical experiences that will help our students to be able to analyze data and uncover information that will support decision making. So we look at topics such as data quality, multidimensional analysis, visualizations, dashboards, and so on. So that's the overall high-level course description. I'd like to also share with you high-level evaluation plan. So we do evaluate our students at multiple times throughout the term. We have a portfolio of work, and this is it's a really innovative evaluation method, and it takes a bit of explaining. And so I'm going to walk through this portfolio activity, this ongoing evaluation, as well as project work. So those are the two areas I'm really going to focus in on today. We do, of course, also have midterms and a final exam as well. So the two areas we're going to learn about today are portfolio and project work. Our courses, all of our courses at Conestoga College, are based on course learning outcomes. And our course learning outcomes really guide or they outline what it is we expect our students to learn and understand by the time they successfully complete the course. These course learning outcomes are also directly linked to program learning outcomes, which are connected to our ministry program standards. And some of our professors here at Conestoga College, including my colleague Stephen Thomson and a group of professors, were instrumental, in fact, in creating the ministry program standards. So that's it's kind of neat for us. So we have course learning outcomes, which help us to understand what the various units will be to support these learning outcomes. We are going to focus on learning outcome number 5 today, and that's creating data visualizations that effectively communicate meaning and context to the readers. So that's where we're going to focus today. So we're doing a little bit of slicing and dicing here to really focus in on a particular unit to understand how have we incorporated SAC into that unit. But I think it's important to understand the larger context first. So this is the learning outcome that we'll focus on, is around visualizations. Within those visualizations, within the course learning outcome, we have then unit outcomes. So each of those course learning outcomes have one or more units that support or help the students to scaffold their learning so that they can then accomplish the larger course learning outcome. So in this case, our unit outcomes for the visualization unit that we're going to focus on are listed here, describing those components of visualization techniques, and the role of visualization in effective communication, how to use appropriate charts and data, what those characteristics are of effective chart design, choosing appropriate visualization methods to communicate information and insights, and creating advanced visualization presentations to effectively communicate results. So those are the unit outcomes that support that larger course learning outcome. So I'll maybe pause just for a moment and I'll invite you to share in the Zoom poll. Do you use learning outcomes at your learning institution to support your course design and development? And if you do use if you do use learning outcomes, then I would invite you to scan this Mentimeter survey and share what are those learning outcomes that you use. So there's two ways to participate here. First is the Zoom poll, and then if you scan that QR code, you can participate by sharing learning outcomes that you use at your institution. Okay. So now we've talked about the program and the course, and now these learning outcomes. And the next step in terms of curriculum set up at our college is an instructional plan. Whoops. Here we go. So an instructional plan lays out for the students and the professor um, what are the units that will be covered. I know this might be a bit hard to see, but week by week, what are the units or the topics that will be covered in class, as well as an applied learning exercise. So this is an opportunity that students will interact, um, um, usually with SAC. There are also each week auxiliary learning materials that are available. Those are various readings, videos, and so on to support students learning. And then finally, a connection to the analytics methodology framework. So we're going to dig in deeper to each of these items in subsequent slides here. But what I want to call to your attention is, so we have a 15-week layout. We have 7 weeks followed by a break, and then the balance of the term. We're focusing in here on this session for week 9 and 10 on data visualization. So you'll remember that was the course learning outcome that we focused on, and now we're going to look at the application during week 9 and 10.
Sarah, if I could just add something really quickly
Thanks,
here,
yes.
just to note as well, you might see that we use not only SAP Analytics Cloud in this course, but we also use Excel extensively, and as well Power Pivot and the Power BI suite. So again, you can use different tools. So I just wanted to add that. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for weighing in, Stephen, and please feel free to do so. Um, so you will probably remember that at the end of that instructional plan, there was a connection to the analytics methodology. And you might have also sort of identified that the way the course is laid out, it sort of follows this analytics methodology framework, and we were walking the students through that process. So when we're looking at the visualization unit, we'll sort of be at the bottom of that loop around reviewing results, presenting findings, and deriving insights. Okay, so we often make reference back to this framework just to help students understand the context in which each unit lives, if you will. So all that to say, our curriculum design is very purposeful. And so at the highest level, we have our course learning outcomes supported by those unit outcomes. And then we have our courses laid out in such a way that they support those learning outcomes. So we anticipated that this might be a barrier. So it's important that the curriculum design is very purposeful. We use learning outcomes to help guide our curriculum design. And we do have a faculty team lead, Stephen Thomson, who really does contribute his thoughts and suggestions and leadership in this area. And we really value that. So remember that visualization that we had at the beginning? Well, we had 6 barriers, and now we'll essentially crossing out the curriculum alignment piece. So the next area I want to take a look at is what I have called here as student-based challenges. And so this is really around how do we design or structure the delivery of material, including evaluations, so that students are engaged in the learning process and retain as much information as possible and practice applying the information that they've learned and retained. So what I'm going to do is walk you through a unit cadence. So what does a week in the life of a student in this particular course, what does it look like? What are the opportunities for learning? What are the expectations? And so on. So I'm going to walk you through this process, and it starts at the beginning with this auxiliary or pre-work. We're going to cycle through an opportunity, an in-class opportunity for applied learning. During that applied learning, there's also formative feedback. And then really this very unique opportunity for portfolio and reflections. We're going to focus on really what does that mean? What are the benefits of that? Followed by more independent project work and the feedback mechanisms that we use. We will be sharing a lot of this material with you at the end of the presentation. So let's get started here. And remember, we're going to walk through this cadence. So we're going to look at each step. Okay, so let's walk through. What would it be like to be an analytics student here at Conestoga College? Well, the first thing that would happen is you would get pre-work. So before you come to class, you would be expected to complete your pre-work. Pre-work could consist of a chapter that's assigned for reading. In this case, exploring SAP Analytics Cloud Unit 5 is what's expected for students to do that, to go through that module online. A LinkedIn learning course on SAP Analytics Cloud, a particular unit from that LinkedIn learning. And then there's another resource that's provided on how to select the correct chart type. So when students come to class, we would begin with an in-class discussion. So there'd be some brief discussion on the pre-work. There'd be an opportunity for students to ask questions. So while they were doing this theoretical work, are there any questions or concerns that came up? And then oftentimes sort of an open sort of discussion or connection question. In this case, what connections can you make between SAC stories and other analytics tools you've used in the past? So this is to get students, sort of thinking about it and recalling the work that they did in advance of class. Okay, so that's the first part, and that's before class even starts. The next part, and I say this is where the magic happens. This is the applied learning. So this is the hands-on portion. So when students come to class, as the professor, I would guide them through an applied activity. So I would be at the front of the class and I would be projecting my work and I would say, come on, folks, let's log in. And I would walk them through the beginning of an exercise. So it would be anywhere between, say, a third to maybe 2/3 of the activity. And students would be, they would be applying, they would be trying it, they would be performing the activity. I feel like Stephen has something he wants to contribute.
Oh, no.
Oh, okay, good.
Sorry. Well, Sarah, I was just going to share with you that Michael Murray had shared that his biggest challenge is getting the students to read the material before they do the applied learning. And so I was just going to ask you at the end of that piece whether or not you have any strategies that work for you.
I have that issue too. I think that that's a common issue that students might not understand the value of doing the pre-work.
So do you have any do you have any strategies that
Mhm.
you've used?
So what I find is that if they don't do the pre-work, they may be less prepared when it comes time to do the hands-on activity. And that might actually just be lesson enough that, they either weren't prepared for the discussion or they felt a little lost when we started the hands-on part. Um, so that often will sort of be a lesson in and of itself for students. But when we get to the next step on the portfolio work and reflection, oftentimes the questions that are posed in that reflection uh, trigger students to go back and to do their homework after, because they want that additional context to help support their portfolio and reflection. So I guess it's kind of a long-winded answer into say, I don't know how to make students do things. I don't know how to make them do their homework before class. However, when they work through this process, they're often sort of, I don't want to say forced to, but they're compelled to as part of a problem solving strategy. So oftentimes what will happen is during applied learning, when we're in the classroom completing an exercise, one or more students inevitably has a question or they encounter something that they don't know how to solve. And part of that formative feedback step for the professor is to say, well, did you watch that video? Or can you recall from your pre-work where you could go to support, to help you problem solve? Sometimes other students will note that. So the other students will say, oh, we read about this, or check this resource, and so on. So I don't know that that's a perfect answer, but that's what I have found. And let's let's kind of take a step further on applied learning. So there are a few best practices that we've learned along the way. So why do we take the time to do this in class applied learning? Um, I would say, first of all, in person is best. That's not always feasible, and we certainly have delivered this course online with very good success. There were times when we were sort of compelled to, and now it is still offered online as an option. So either way can work. But what's really important is that there's an opportunity for that real-time guidance walking through an activity, and that students have an opportunity to do those keystrokes and to interact with the program so that they can sort of live it. And it helps them a lot to remain engaged. It's hard for students to sort of zone out when everyone around them is engaged in trying to complete an activity. They sort of want to keep up with the classroom part of the discussion, or the classroom sort of walkthrough. And I think we can all attest to the fact that when we watch someone do something, it seems pretty easy and straightforward. However, when we ourselves try, that's when we really learn, because we know firsthand, what keystrokes worked and which ones didn't, and why did we go to this section and not that section, and so on. So it helps students to really retain that information. So another point that I would make is that soft skills are analytic skills too. And so this applied learning also reinforces and helps students to develop those very important critical thinking and problem solving skills. When they are completing an exercise, inevitably they run into or they encounter something that they don't understand immediately how to do it. They're challenged and they have to work through, how do I solve this problem? Oftentimes, or I shouldn't say often, but on more than one occasion, I have been pleasantly surprised with the very creative and innovative solutions that some students come up with. So I think that's really neat that they have that opportunity. It also helps them to build their confidence. Because as we know, when they get out into the workforce, they're absolutely going to encounter sort of tricky situations. And knowing that they have the skills to actually analyze an issue and try to figure out a solution and then enact that solution, it's excellent at building their confidence. Students also collaborate during this stage of learning. So while they're completing this hands-on activity, at the beginning, it's guided by the professor, just so they can sort of get in and get started and build a little bit of confidence. But then for the last 2/3 to 1/3, the students are tasked to sort of carry on independently to get through the exercise. often they have to collaborate with a neighbor or a student near them if they run into an issue. And so it helps them develop those communication and collaboration skills. Finally, while they're working independently, the role of the professor is to really sort of walk through the classroom, if it's a virtual classroom, to sort of cycle through the breakout rooms, if you will, and encourage students. So ask them how they're, how are they doing with the work? Some of the students really like one unit more than another, and they might be very much engaged and really excited about it. Other students might be struggling and need a little bit more support or encouragement. It's also an opportunity to provide immediate feedback and guidance. Sometimes as a professor, you'll notice that quite a few students or more than one student is sort of encountering the same challenge, and that's an opportunity to call to attention everyone about, hey, here's a particular challenge that many students are facing, and brainstorm solutions or start a discussion on how to problem solve. So the applied learning is really an opportunity where students are walking through an example. And it's fairly low stakes because they don't have to be perfect. It's an opportunity for them to work through an exercise.
And Sarah, I just wanted to just give a little
Yeah.
sort of give all of our attendees the heads up that during the practical portion, after our break, looking at the folder structure, we're going to show you again how you can set up SAC to facilitate the in-class exercises as well as evaluations. So, thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so that applied learning piece is critical in really engaging students. There was a question earlier about, well, what if students don't do their homework? Quite frankly, some students don't do the pre-work, and that happens. Even if they don't do the pre-work, I have never sat in a class where a student has refused to engage in the applied learning. So everyone else around them is doing this learning. The professor's guiding them through it. There's an opportunity for questions. So I've actually never had a student sit in a class and refuse to do the applied learning. So I have never had that experience. So this is a way to sort of to get them and engage them, and they're starting to do the work. And by the end of the class, almost before they know it, they now have some experience with the tool that you have introduced them to, whether or not they've done the pre-work. So that applied learning, we have that captive audience when they're in class, and we get them going, get them hands-on. So that applied learning, I think, is really critical in overcoming this challenge that we all have, where students might not do their homework or they might not fully engage with all of the content. So we find that these applied learning sessions really improve retention and understanding, and it really encourages engagement and motivation as well. Okay. So we've now solved two of our barriers, and we're going to move on to the third, and that one is around time constraints. And so that one really focuses on us as professors. We often think to ourselves, we don't have time to add a whole new tool into our curriculum, develop a whole new course, and so on. We're going to talk about some ways that we can support that. So I talked a little bit about formative feedback. So while students are engaged in applied learning, this is when the professor is able to circulate through the physical room or virtual room to provide guidance and feedback, encourage the students, support their collaboration, ask them questions that sort of supports or guides their learning, and providing real-time in-place feedback to students. So that formative feedback piece is important, and it allows us to really take advantage of our classroom time to help provide students with feedback as they're learning and applying what they've learned. Okay, so far they've done their homework before they came to class, maybe, we hope. They certainly have engaged and applied learning in the classroom, and they've had some formative feedback as well. The next thing I want to describe is, I think, something that's really unique and very helpful in as part of a student's learning journey. And that is something called our reflection portfolio, or portfolio plus reflection. Either way, let's get through this. So what this assignment is it provides students with an opportunity to reflect on the hands-on learning experience that they had. So after each applied learning class, which is every class, so after each applied learning session, students then have an opportunity to reflect on that, and at the same time create a record of their study, or a record or a portfolio of the tools that they have used. And so that's very helpful because it helps our students to make connections to the in-class applied learning and those course and unit learning outcomes. It helps them to reflect on the work that they did in class. And something that is so innovative about this reflection portfolio is it creates a lasting archive of their coursework. And so this archive or portfolio can, and I know it has been used at job interviews. So when students are asked if they have experience with visualizations or dashboards, or whatever, whatever that analytics requirement might be, instead of just saying yes, they can say yes and let me show you. So it's a really excellent opportunity. One of the things that you'll be able to access at the end of our session today is the portfolio reflection assignment instructions. So Stephen and I are happy to share those with all of the participants, and you'll be able to access a Dropbox at the end of our session. And so we're happy to share, these are the assignment instructions, or the reflection portfolio instructions, so that you may use them in your own classes. So some of you might be thinking, this is an analytics course. Why are we talking about reflection? Well, I'll tell you why. So reflection, part of this portfolio, in addition to compiling evidence of the work that you've completed throughout the term, this reflective practice or process encourages students to reflect on that applied learning experience, and it really helps them to internalize what they have learned so that they can apply it in future context. So it's not just the hands-on applied learning, but it's the reflection that really helps to transform that experience into a deeper understanding. So that's why the reflection component exists in this portfolio. Now, the reflection is what I would call guided. So we don't just say, oh, reflect on your applied learning. It's more sort of directed. And I'm going to show you the types of questions that we ask students to reflect on. So they've completed their applied learning in class. The next thing they're going to do for each week is to create their reflection portfolio. And here's the prompts that they're going to reflect on. So first of all, we want them to connect this applied learning or this exercise to the learning outcomes. So that could be the unit or learning outcomes, or the course learning outcomes. We want them to make those connections. We also focus a fair bit on data quality in this course. So data quality is one of those units that I think Stephen was not the inventor of data quality, but I think Stephen really thought that that was important, and I do as well. So we really teach students to analyze and assess the quality of the data and to think about and reflect on how that impacts the analysis. We want them to think about a valuable skill or understanding that they gained while completing this applied activity, and we want them to connect it to the analytics methodology. So that's a big one that we ask them to do. And then finally, we want them to think about any challenges that they experienced and how they overcame those challenges. Um, for each of these questions, we ask students to use artifacts from their work, usually from their work, to support the statements, support the arguments that they're making. So I have collected a few examples from students' work, and I'm going to show those. I'll show them to you now of exactly how these instructions kind of translate in student work. So here's an exercise that students did on um, um, visualizations, geographical visualizations. Sorry, that word escaped me. So in this case, the student was making a connection about why it would be advantageous to use a geographic visualization as opposed to, I think, a bar chart. And this student has included a screenshot of some of their completed work. So just as an example.
Can I add just a real quick
Yeah.
story? So this particular data set is about incidents in railways, either accidents or spills, et cetera. And one of the insights that my students found from this was they now know where the railways are in Canada. So I just thought I'd share that. Unexpected, but it was an insight.
Thanks, Stephen. In another case, a student was reflecting on and analyzing data quality. So in this case, they have a screenshot of a section of their work, and they're talking about the issues that they found and what corrections they were able to make, and so on and so forth. So we really are taking students away from this theoretical kind of talk, and what we want them to do is reflect on what they did in the classroom and make reflections on that applied activity, and they're making connections to various other components. So it's a very guided or directed reflection, if you will. Another student was making some connections between SAC and Excel. So in this case, this student was saying, here's the similarities that I could see between these tools. So that, and they have a visualization to support that. So that's some interesting reflection. And then the final piece that I'll share is a student was reflecting on a challenge that they encountered, and they reflected that the pie chart they didn't think was a very effective visualization, and so they're making some reflections and some connections on that. Steve, oh. The final piece of what we ask students to do in their portfolio is to create a glossary. So throughout the term, as they learn about new terms that they either weren't familiar with or they really want to define that term more carefully, what we ask them to do is document the term, the definition, and then the source of where they got that data. So excuse me, or where they got that definition. Excuse me. So we're really encouraging the students to learn the vernacular and to incorporate that vocabulary. Okay. We also use rubrics in our grading. So what happens is when the students complete their reflections, they hand in their I shouldn't call it reflections. It's really a reflection portfolio. When they complete their portfolio and reflections, they hand it in to the professor, and of course um, we grade each of those portfolios, and we use a rubric. So there's various components. I think this one maybe has six or seven different components, and we grade the students either very excellent results, acceptable results, or they need improvement. And so this rubric is another document that we're prepared to share with you folks. So we won't go through this rubric in great detail. I suspect most folks use some form of a rubric in their grading. Okay, so the next thing that we do, so students have done their homework, they've done their applied learning, and had that formative experience in the classroom. Then they have completed their portfolio and reflection. Now students are ready to do something that's more independent, and that is project work. So in this case, students work on a visualization assignment, and they are encouraged or tasked with picking their very own data set, and then doing some data analysis work and creating visualizations that effectively communicate meaning and context to the audience. So the project requirements are that they pick a data set, they make a proposal to their professor, they perform some data quality analysis along with transformations, and then they create a story. And when they create the story, they're tasked with coming up with a question and using a visualization to answer that question. And then they deliver that presentation. So let me show you some examples of student work. These are on various different topics, but in the first example, they're looking at which location has the highest revenue. And then in another student, these are two different projects. Another student was looking at distribution of sex and age range as it pertains to Canadian income. So that was an interesting project. This visualization project, the instructions, is something that Stephen and I are happy to share. Excuse me. In addition to that, we're also happy to share our rubric. So we use rubrics to assess students again with the really excellent work, passing quality work, and needs improvement. Sorry, folks, that's how we know it's almost time for me to stop talking. Okay, so let's see the second page of the rubric. Whoops. Pardon me. So we assess each of the visualizations, the different chart types, and so on and so forth. This is a rubric that we will also share with you as well. So finally want to wrap up. So we talked about this pre-work that's assigned to students, then they come into the classroom and they complete that hands-on applied learning. During that learning time, we as professors are engaged with students, and we're circulating through the in-person room or virtual room to support their learning and prompt them, provide them with feedback, and so on. Then students, after they've completed their in-class applied activity, they create a portfolio of their work, which includes some guided reflection. And that really helps to reinforce and internalize that learning, which they then apply to independent project work, which they submit for summative feedback. So that's the process that we go through each week with our students. So each unit or each week. So we talked about sharing our work, and so Stephen and I are happy to do that. And I think that that will really help you to overcome that time constraint issue. So we're happy to share our course learning outcomes and course description. A copy of this presentation will be shared with each of you after the presentation, so you can feel free to use that, as well as the pre-work and exercise, our reflection assignment and rubric, visualization project and rubric. So we're happy to share all of those materials with you.
And Sarah, I think to get access, that's a link to our Dropbox, was it? This
Yeah, yeah,
this
thank you.
QR code?
I was trying to rush through.
Yeah, no, it's
That
all good.
is,
I just want I will chat out because there is a password,
oh,
which
right.
is SAC 2025. So I just I'll chat that to everyone. And please let us know through either the chat or the Q&A if you're having issues accessing our materials. We also have a copy of the PowerPoint slides in there as well.
Thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome.
So I think that by sharing this work that has been done, it's probably going to be quite helpful for many folks who want to incorporate a piece of this entire unit or a piece of this unit. We're happy to share our work, and you can use parts of it. You could modify it. You could use it as is.
Mhm.
That's up to you.
And it's royalty free.
So that takes care of our third barrier. So we're halfway there, and I think we probably all need a small break at this point before when we come back. I'm gonna hand things over to my colleague Stephen, who will, I think, begin by talking about the technical issues and how to address those technical issues. So let's see. According to my clock, it's 11:13. So we'll come back at 11:18.
Sounds
So
good.
break until 11:18. And I wonder if I could ask Kate to put that in the chat so everyone knows we're back at 11:18.
Great. And I've been asked, and I will chat the Dropbox link in excuse me in the webinar as well, because maybe not everyone had a chance with the QR codes. All right, thanks. We'll see everyone in a few minutes. Hello, everyone. Just as we're coming back from break, we wanted to share the one poll that we had started, which is in regards to ranking the barriers. And so what we can see is the top barrier is the educators' knowledge and skills gap, seconded by what was the second? By time constraints. So those are kind of one and two and very close. So thanks for sharing that. We just finished around time constraints. And actually, our next section is about educators' knowledge and skills gap. We do believe and we do know that attending seminars like that is like this is one way of reducing that. Just getting my presentation up here. And I will share this with you. Okay. Great. So our next section that we're going to be looking at, and now we're going to dive in a little bit more deeper into SAP Analytics Cloud. But just before we do, I want to address um, looking at now that we've decided that Analytics Cloud we may want to integrate part of it or all of it into our courses, or maybe we're still exploring where do we find exercises? Where do we find materials that can support our use of SAP Analytics? I am I am proud and happy to say that we use the practical analytics text provided by Episteme Press, and Episteme makes or they publish a series of textbooks that accompany the SAP University Alliance products and programs. This textbook was written by Nitin Kale and Nancy Jones, and I believe Nancy is on our call, and yeah, so great to have her here. She's been a mentor of mine as well. And so within that textbook, there are exercises that have been developed for each chapter. I do have the QR code there for the to get to episteme, and certainly recommend that you check it out if you have not. Inside the materials around practical analytics, we can see that the structure of this textbook takes you through the analytics methodology. Also included within the instructor materials are PowerPoint slides, as well as, again, the exercises and an exercise matrix that Nancy and Nitin have put together that, again, help you to identify, based on your learning outcomes, what exercises would best support that. Another resource that I'd like to provide you, and this may be new to some of you in terms of availability for academics, which is the Ernst & Young Academic Resource Center. Now, I happened to see this last summer during the academic conference in Montreal. And at that point, EY had announced that they've developed this resource center and have encouraged us SAP University Alliance members to use these resources. So again, here's the QR code to access it. Within the Resource Center, what we have are user guides, lecture notes, case studies, exercises, data sets. It's an incredible repository. And these are organized by topics such as innovation, artificial intelligence, analytics mindsets, um, topics that we could incorporate into our analytics type courses and analytics adjacent courses. So I encourage you to check this out to get registered for the EY Academic Resource Center. And just personally within my IT courses, I'm currently using some of the material around artificial intelligence. Specifically, included in this resource center is a slide deck and guide on prompting engineering. And so I think we can all identify that prompting is going to become a key skill set from our students and graduates. And so, a great spot for that. I've got a link to a brochure that's also incorporated in the Dropbox. So if you've been in the Dropbox, you can see it in there, again, just for your information. So sometimes we will access exercises that include data sets. So those are examples that we again provided through from Practical Analytics. Sometimes as faculty, and both Sarah and I have done this, we will find data sets for students and then use those data sets to develop exercises or projects. As Sarah showed earlier, that one geospatial map that looked at pipeline incidences across Canada, that would be an example of a data set that we got from the Canadian government. Just giving you an idea here, this would be like a data set where we have the students not only download the data sets, but also download the data dictionaries. So again, getting them used to using both data and dictionaries to understand the data before they go in and do their analysis. So included in this slide are some government data sources, one from the US and Canada, as well as some repositories that both we and the students have used. So Google, Kaggle is one that we know we use quite a bit, and then GitHub. There might be others, and if folks have some other databases that they use or data sources, data set sources, you want to chat them, we'd be happy to incorporate those and send those out. Okay, so that covers our exercises, getting students and getting faculty prepared, right, for that piece. Now we're going to jump into Analytics Cloud. So now that I got an exercise, I know what learning or learning outcomes I want to integrate. How do we get started? So what I've developed, and for the folks from the UCCs here, the University Competency Centers, this is a draft, and I said to Sandy that we would start this. Sandy from the UCC in Milwaukee, who I know is joining us today. And we will again share this get started checklist, and this is a great start for us. So I'm going to go through these pieces today. Everything from how, first step is ordering a client, updating your profile, creating faculty folders, and then creating all the structure for your students. We are going to cover each one. Whoops. And I have a quick, I just noted, quick error on the slide. I don't have a step 7, but we're going to go through each one of these pieces. I may not get to demonstrate them all, but we definitely have slides that are incorporated that will show you how to, examples of how to create team folders, how to create assignment folders. And we also facilitate exams through SAC, so how to create exam folders. All right. So let's get started on ordering a client. So for some of you, you will work with your faculty coordinator, or some of you are a faculty coordinator. When you order your clients from the University Competency Centers, clients are ordered each semester. And what a client represents is an instance of SAP Analytics Cloud. And as we're going to look at this, that can be used for one section or for multiple sections of the same course. Now at Conestoga, what we do is we order one client for one section. And I'll show you that in a further slide. But what we can see here is when you order from the UCC, you need to at least provide a 1 week minimum lead time, right, for them. Because basically what happens is you order from your competency center, and it's the Magdeburg hosting in Germany that actually runs the SAC. So there's a little bit of a handoff there, and just takes sometimes a day or so longer than maybe if you've used ERP Sim or an S/4HANA client. So we can see that you enter your start and end date of your course, as well as the date that this client is required. And again, there needs to be a 1 week gap there. All right, noticing there's lots going on in the chat. Okay, I've just assumed that everything's under control. So again, just to show you, and this is, I'm giving you a window into, as my role as the faculty coordinator, I keep an Excel workbook of all my orders throughout each semester and each year. So this is by each semester, I document what the course codes are, the instructor. So this is all for one course in which we have, looks like 9 different sections in this particular semester. And what we can see is I order a different client basically for each one. So I'm going to, we'll then take you to the next screen. All right, so when we order the client from the UCC, one of the things that you have to specify, and what's important around the SAC clients, is that the instructor's, the instructor's login, the instructor's ID never expires. That is, once an instructor is provided with a Sales Analytics Cloud ID, they will use that ID for every time that they use Analytics Cloud. So that's a little different than the ERP clients themselves, right? Where you would get a new administrative password each semester. So when you're ordering your client and in the comments, what I specify, and at minimum, you need to specify who is the instructor and if they have an existing ID to specify that. And what that does is the competency centers then, attach that and share and provide access for that user to access that folder for that course. Now, in addition to the instructor that's teaching the course, we also ask to add any course leads or the faculty coordinator, or if you've got a colleague that you're collaborating on a course, you can add more than one instructor. And what this allows us to do is, as a course lead, and if I, let's say, have a new instructor teaching a course, I can share all my materials through that course and allow them again, decrease the learning curve for any new instructors teaching within a course in a program. So again, we always add that course lead. And again, in the comments, I just say, plus the course lead, my name, and what my SAC ID is. Now, if a faculty does not have an existing account, again, I specify the same information. And instead of providing the SAC ID, I specify new ID required. All right. So when we get that client information back, and we're going to look at this in terms of our course, what you'll see is, depending on the number of students that you've ordered, the number of students you've specified, you will get student accounts. And the student accounts, there's a nomenclature. The NFB is your institution. NFB is Conestoga College. Learn is a student account, and then just a three or four digit code for the actual ID itself. If we come down to the faculty IDs here, you can see that it's a similar nomenclature. Again, the institution NFB, teach is for obviously faculty, and then 21 is the faculty ID. Okay, we can see here that there is a link to Nancy Jones's Dropbox, personal Dropbox, which is the repository for the Episteme Press exercises and materials, which is great.
Stephen?
Yes, Sarah?
Here's a question. How do we know, how would someone know if they have an existing ID?
How would they know? Well, that's a good question. So one of the things that I'm going to show you is, when you create your ID, one of the first things you need to do is to update your profile and put in your email account. So what I might recommend, and let me just bounce out of here for a sec. Actually, when we sign on, let me just grab my screen here. When we sign on, sorry, I'm trying to get my window here. I'm already signed on here. But what I was going to say is, I'm just going to log off. When you sign on to Analytics Cloud, you can actually either use your email address or your SAC ID. So I might suggest, why don't you try to use your email address and specify that you forgot your password? Try that first. Now, if anyone from either SAP or the UCCs have any other ways to look up a code, maybe let me know.
There is
What I
an
would say,
answer also shared in the chat. So thanks, Stephen.
oh, okay. Oh,
Thanks very
great.
much.
No, you're welcome. And I just wanted to specify that this is one of the reasons that I personally, as a coordinator, keep track of all that, because that can easily happen. A faculty may not be teaching every semester, and so I keep a list of all the faculty IDs. And in our institution, me as a faculty coordinator, I order all the clients, and it's just so that I can report to my management and also understand where we're using SAP and better support it. So that works out well for us. Okay, make sure. Got to be sharing again here. Sorry, folks. Okay, so let's go back. Oh, great. Okay, so that's the client information. As I mentioned, and really quick, so here's the list of my faculty. So again, name, email, and their account number. You can see, I think we're up to 28 faculty right now that have taught with SAC. Not all of them are current. And then each semester, as I mentioned, I do keep track of this in a spreadsheet. So again, the course, the instructor, their SAP account. So when we order it and there isn't an account, we specify, required, the number of students. There's the password. So again, we could see on this one, JD and NKIT are both new faculty. Down here, we can see this because their initial password. There's your student accounts and your student passwords. Okay, so again, this is what I keep. Now we're going to look, so that's ordering the client and getting it ready. Now, once the client is configured and assigned to you, our next step is going to be setting up the folder structure. So what I'm going to be going through here is the folder structure, or sometimes called the tenant. The tenant is the name of that structure behind it, considering the sharing principles, and we'll talk about this. We're going to look at how to set this up, and then I'm going to kind of live demonstrate a little bit later that you're going to be acting as the students, and I'm going to set up the course really quickly. So what we can see is we have basically a file structure that allows for students and faculty to share data, share analytics results, and keep track of things. Okay, thanks. Kate, actually. Oh, it's okay. It's good. I got it. That's great. Thanks. Okay, so here's our, so in the file structure that we'll go through, what we can see here is there's a couple components for us to take a look at. The NFB 174 and NFB 184, these are going to be two class folders that have been set up for the courses. So if we go back really quickly here, if we take a look here at the client information, we can see here this NFB 184, which is the client that I ordered for the session. We can now see it in my folder structure. Okay. The 174 was the course I was using to test and set up for this webinar today. I also have a personal account here. Now I put a Z in front of my name because through some semesters, these folders can get quite large in terms of the number of, so I know where I can always find mine at the bottom. And that was something Nancy had recommended. So again, I use this folder for development as well as this is a repository for models and data and maybe even solutions that I can then share with both students and other faculty. So this is kind of a repository. All right. Now, Nancy Jones does have a great series of videos. One of them is teaching with SAC, which would be a great complement to our course today. We might be going a little bit deeper, but I do recommend everyone watch that video. And what Nancy recommends in terms of the structure is don't save anything in the sample folders. Don't not alter any samples or templates. And at the end of the semester, we're going to talk about setting up with the students, asking them to delete their files and folders. And then deleting any unnecessary content in your folders as well. So basically, once the students use the folders for the year, it'd be good for them to, again, clean those out. So what I'd like to go through is the file structures. And again, you will have a copy of these slides. So really quickly, in terms of the in terms of the folder structure, when we look at the faculty folder structure, what I've done is I've basically broken my faculty folder into our dashboard assignment for our course, all the practical analytics exercises that we use, as well as a visualization assignment and data models. If we then expand the practical analytics, what I've done is I've done a folder for each exercise that we use in the course. If I then break out that folder, so if we take a look at, for example, exercise 6.2, Global Bike and SAC, What I have in here is the data set that was provided by Nancy. We can see that with the little icon. I have a data model that I can provide to students. Now, the difference between the data and the data model is the model is going to have calculations built into it. The data model may have hierarchies defined and other pieces. So depending on the course and depending on where you are in the learning outcomes, you may provide the students with just the data and they create their own model. You may give them the model and then asking them to create their analytics, or and in some instances, I've also created the solution here, and this little icon is a data story that I've created for this particular exercise. And what can happen is you could share that with students if you are in a environment where you just want the students to analyze. Okay. All right. Let me move
Stephen,
on.
if I could ask a quick
Yes.
question,
Yeah,
in your
absolutely.
experience, what is the lead time to create a new client? How long does that usually
A
take?
week. It's a week. You need to give
Mm.
them a week. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's great. And thanks for following up on that. So one calendar week. Again, you can share information or share content with your students either from your personal folder, or you're going to see what I like to do is I actually move some of the models over into the student's course structure. But you can do either. And this is what Nancy mentions here. You can either copy or share it directly. Okay. So again, this idea of sharing. All right, now let's go into a course folder structure because this is a little more different. So if we look at like NB 174, so again, this was the course I'd set up to get ready for the webinar today. When we break out that folder, what I actually have inside my course is a folder for the assignment teams. So in our course for the assignments are done in teams. I have a folder for all the exercise data. Okay, and we'll break that out in a little bit later. And then thirdly, there is a folder set up to which the students will then perform and save their work. Now, so let's look at the team folders first, and we're going to break this out in a future slide. But basically what happens is I set up a folder for each team, and then later you'll see I'm going to share those folders with the students assigned to that team. For the student folders, and we're going to walk through this when you become a student, I have my students create a folder for themselves to share their work or to store their work, potentially share it with me. And I use a nomenclature of last name, first name, and their student ID. In terms of the exercise data, again, you can see this is very similar to the structure in my repository. So I have moved this exercise data from my own repository into my slides. Yeah, thanks. So from that perspective, yeah, I just copied those in there. And you can see in this course, what we provide to the students is the data and the model. In this visualization exercise, we don't have them go through the modeling. We provide them with the model. Great. All right. I just wanted to mention both to Sarah and Kate that I've actually switched my slides around a little bit. So I know I'm a little bit behind in terms of our initial schedule, but I will get caught up during the demos. So thanks. Okay, now in terms of the student files, so we talked about in the previous slide that I have my students create a folder for each student. So you can see Joanne Smith and one for myself here. That was just a play one. But what we can see under the student folders, I just want to talk to you about the sharing. So when we create a student folder, what basically happens is, and one of the elements that I did mention earlier about the way that folders and folder sharing works is any subfolder that's been created from a course is going to initially inherit the shared properties of the entire course. So what does that mean? That means for us, when we're creating our student folders, what's going to happen is the student obviously is the owner. In my case, it's myself as the owner because I'm the teacher. But in this case, what happens is the team, which is the entire number of students, is added to that. And so I did specify here, sorry, to revise the course share to read only, or you could remove the team. So depending on how your course is set up, and this is some options, if you want only that one student to be able to access that folder, then you would have them remove the team. Now, if you wanted them to share this with you as a faculty, you would have them add you as a share. And so there are some options there, depending on, again, how you're facilitating that. But it is important to note that, again, any subfolder does inherit from the parent. So again, by default, everybody in the course will have access to every folder. Okay, and then you can either change their access or remove them. Now, in terms of project teams, so again, under the dashboard assignment, so we'd have one for the visualization assignment, we'd have a second one for the dashboard assignment. Again, I have a folder for each team, and just a sample here of 2 teams. And then what we do, and this is an example where we're going to remove the team sharing, is that as the instructor, and the instructor will create these team folders. I am the owner, so it means I can go in and take a look at what's happening. I will add each student who is assigned to team number 1, full control of that folder, and I will remove team NFB 174. So that's basically everyone in the course. I will remove them by clicking and then hitting delete from the sharing. Last but not least, what we have is the exam file structure. Now, not everyone's going to want to potentially open this up, but I did want to show you how we facilitate exams in SAC. I create a top level folder. So this folder is not part of my NFB 174. What I then do is I share that entire folder initially with NFB 174. So again, that's the course. My folders then, I have basically 2 kinds of folders in my exam structure. First, the midterm data files, and then secondly, a folder for each student. And I'm just going to call them 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way down through the number of students that I have. With the midterm data files, I want to share those with the entire class. So this is the ability for the students to be able to access either the file or the model, depending on what you're using, for the exam, inside their analytics cloud. And then, and this takes a little bit of time, so it's a little bit of preparation. We typically have between 40 and 60 students per section, sorry. What I need to do is, of course, remove the team from access to that folder and then give that student full control. So again, that allows them to work within their own folder. They're controlled and secured. And that's how we use them for exams. All right. Now we're going to get hands-on. Okay, so if you'd like to join along, and you don't have to, because again, this isn't a technical session, but I thought, some of you may want to see what does it look like to be a student in SAC. As myself as a faculty, I'm building the course and setting everything up. So I'm going to be inviting everyone to log into SAC as a student. Now, it's going to take a couple minutes because what I need you to do, and this is our URL. Now, I do have a QR code on the other side, but there's 2 steps. So the first step is I need you to find what is your SAP Analytics user ID for the team that was set up for this course, for this webinar. Now, I have this both in an Excel file or a PDF version. So if you could please open up either one, find your name. In the Excel file, the PDF and the Excel, they're both sorted alphabetically by last name. Obviously, with the Excel file, you could go in and filter. So you need to find your user ID. And remembering the Dropbox password is SAC2025. And then I'm going to be getting you to log into the SAP Analytics Cloud as a student. Your initial password will be INITSAC. And here's your link to Higher Education, US 10, SAPanalytics.cloud. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes. Let's give, let's say to 11:50. We'll just hang out here. Again, I'm not going to be really able to, do much problem solving, but if you do have any questions, please chat them or on the Q&A. So let's give everyone a couple minutes to kind of log in here. Mhm. You're doing that. I will get myself set up. So when you have your ID and when you are logging into Analytics Cloud, because I'm going to log in both as a student, so I'm just going to use an incognito browser to log in as a student, and as well I'll have a faculty as well. Just need to change my share here in a sec. So when you do set the link, it should take you to, again, the landing page for UCC Magdeburg. So I'll just give another minute or so. I won't be going really fast through here. So, if you need to, if you're still following along a little bit, should be okay. So I'm hopefully that's working all right. Certainly for a course, I provide what I do is provide an Excel file for the students that will have their student ID and their SAP Analytics Cloud user ID. Um, all right. Well, I think I'm going to continue on. I hope I provided a little bit of time for you to find out your user ID and then log in. I'll find out when their student folders are created. We'll see how many folks were able to get logged in. All right. Okay, so after we've logged in initially, and again, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between my PowerPoint slides and then doing some live demonstrating. Um, Before I bounce into the SAC live, what I do is I just want to show you that the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to update our profile. That is extremely important for really the biggest reason is putting in your email address so that as we've kind of discovered within our conversation, I have some cross-reference that I can then use to maybe recall what my username was or to reset a password. Unlike other SAP clients, like S/4HANA, for example, we as faculty or coordinators do not have access to update student passwords. Now, if they have their email in there, they can request, right, a new password, but we can't reset them. Similar to ourselves, we can't reset our passwords. It's not like in S/4HANA, I add an extra admin user ID so that I can log in if I ever mix something up. Okay, so again, we're going to do that first. So again, I'm going to live demo. So what I'm going to do is log in as this student account. Okay, and the first time that you log in, you'll be asked to change your password. Oh, sorry. I gotta go back. Sorry, let me go back. So that was NFB learn. And it was, what was it, 12. I just need to go to my client here again. Just give me a minute. And 1273. Sorry, just need to look up my thing. 73 and then my INIT Okay, let's try this one. Okay. All right. Now that I have the right user account, need to change my password, so I will change it to something else. Ooh, okay. Let's back out of here. That should have taken me. Let me try another one. Just going to open up a new private window. Let's give this a shot again. Okay, so we'll try NFB, learn. And let me try, what did I have before? I'm going to try 1270. INIT SAC. Okay, so again, I'm prompted for my password. There we go. All right, so now I am in SAP Analytics Cloud. For those of you who've used it, which I know is the majority, I think, of our participants today, welcome. For those of you that haven't, or welcome back to those that have. For those that haven't, welcome. Again, we're not going to be going through technically how to use SAC. This is how to set it up. So as a student, the very first thing that I recommend to do is that we're going to update our profile. So I'd like you to go over to the far right-hand side of the screen, click on the N, and we're going to go to the profile settings. And again, what we want to make sure is that we update our name and our email address. And if you want a picture, you certainly can. So we'll just edit this. Again, we'll put in our, at, doesn't matter what it is, and then your first and last name. Okay, and then you would save that. All right, and again, that will allow students to reset their own passwords. So it's just something, again, I have my students do right away. You know what, I'll put in a real one then. Okay, so we'll cancel that. Okay, so that's the profile setting. So that's where we're at. All right, so hopefully everyone got their profile set up. Now, the next thing that we're going to do within our demonstration here, if I can find my PowerPoint, great, is that I'm going to be asking, actually, sorry, before we jump into that one, we're going to come back to SAC because I'm going to have everyone create their folder. Okay, so if you're logged into SAC Analytics Cloud, after you've updated your profile, back to our checklist, the second thing we want to do is set up the folders. Now, before you can set up your folder, I need to set up the course. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to bounce into Matterberg myself as a faculty. So again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to log in. So now I'm a faculty. I probably should have something on the screens denoting when I'm faculty and when I'm student, but you can see I'm in my Teach account. So I'm going to go into my folders by selecting the My Files on the left-hand page. Our course is NFB 184. So as I mentioned earlier, within that folder structure, and you can see I've got my exercise data and data models created, but what I want to do is create a folder for students. So again, allowing you to have an individual folder for each student. So I'm just going to go up to the to the folder, create folder. I'm going to call this student accounts. Okay. I could put a description in there. So folders for student work. I'm going to create that. Now, if you don't want all of the student folders to be shared together before you have your students creating the accounts, and remembering that the sharing is going to be adopted from the parent folder, if I go into my student accounts and look at the shared, what I'm going to see here is that NFB team 184 has access. That allows, again, again, what will happen is the students, again, when the students create their folders, when you create your folders, it will adopt that. So we're going to have to remove that. All right, so under student accounts, that's set up. So now I'm going to go back as a student. So as a student, now when I select my folders, I'm only going to see those folders that have been shared with me. So when I come in here, all I can see are input forms, NFB 184, public and samples. So I'm going to open up NFB 184. When I open up NFB 184, the exercise data and data models is available to me and my student accounts. So what I'd like you to all do is to open up NFB 814 or 184 if you, again, were able to access. Open up the student accounts. And then we're all going to do is create our own student account or our own student folder to save our work. So under folder actions, I'm going to ask you to create a folder. So here, again, with the nomenclature, it's Thomson, my first name, Stephen, and then whatever student identification you may want. Now, you can create your own nomenclature. It's just the one that we choose to use at Conestoga. Okay. So I really just need my name and then hit create. So now the expectation, right, is that when I log in, this is going to be the folder I access and use. So I'm going to invite you to all create your accounts as well. Now, after I've created the account, there's one more piece, which is, again, I need to look at the sharing. So with the sharing, again, if the intent is that, you and for Conestoga, this is our intent. This folder is for this student and this student only. The only two users that should have access is the student account itself, 1270, Learn 1270, and the teacher, Teach 021. That allows me to view the work either to support the student by seeing what they're doing or to evaluate. As we're going to talk later, this is one way that you can see the student's work. But what I'm going to do is remove Team NFB 184. What I want to do is I want to remove this and remove the access from, now in this case, only the selected folder because I don't have any subfolders. But if I already had some subfolders created like for assignments or other work or exercises, I could also ask it to apply to remove the whole class from all of my subfolders. So as a faculty, if you found your a student hasn't controlled their share, you can do this at any time and you can apply the change of access to all the files and folders created. Okay. All right, so awesome. So now I can see, now I can see a bunch of users in here, and that's awesome. Good for you to create those. And so now going back, once you've created, all right, so again, so what I can see here from Lynn Bird here from DSU, and these things will happen, right? If I'm going back to my main folder, I can see that Lynn's created their folder, not in the student account folder, but in my own. So, sorry, in the root directory for the course. So what I might do is, let's see if I can, you know what? It's been a while since I've done that. I don't think I can move it, but probably what I would do is ask Lynn to move that folder into the student accounts. Okay. I can see that I'm starting to, as a faculty, now I'm going to bring over my faculty screen now. What I can see now as a faculty is I'm getting messages that students are sharing folders with me. So if I go into FB 184 and I go into student accounts, right, excellent, Lynn. Lynn moved their account over. That's great. Now I can see all my student accounts. So you guys rock. So just to check, if I go into the sharing, what we can see, again, is that there's the learn and the teach. And if I'm just looking at, looks like Hossam's folder, we would get Hossam to make sure that they remove the NFB team from that folder. So again, that's their folder and their folder only. We will allow for team folders to be shared. Okay. All right. So now that I've got my students set up, now students are able to access exercise data and models, which you guys will be doing in a few seconds. I just want to demonstrate the team setup, and then we're going to get you guys working hands-on. All right. So I'm going to go back to NFB 184. And because again, what I can, back at the root directory, I've got my student accounts and my exercise accounts, which I've populated the exercise accounts before, which again, what I was able to do, and I'll show you again, is I was able to move exercises from my personal folder into the course. So before I do that, let's just create, I'm just going to create a team folder just to show you how it's done. So let's say you have an assignment like ours, let's say the dashboard assignment. So again, I create different teams for each assignment. Now, if your teams are assigned for the entire course and the students will perform multiple projects for under each team, then you may just want to create team folders here. We at Conestoga allow the students to work in different teams for different assignments. So what that means is that under each assignment, I will be creating teams and then sharing those teams. So again, the two differences are if you have teams that are set up and those teams stay static throughout the semester and they work together, then I would create team folders and then and do it that way. Team folders first and then assignments. But if it's a multiple, students can work in multiple teams, then again, we're going to do it like this. So again, I'm going to say the dashboard assignment folder. So then within an assignment folder, I'm going to have two subfolders, right? I'm going to have first folders that I create. And again, you're just following, you're just looking here. Excuse me. My first folder is going to be for data and data models. So this is again where I would share those models. And then second, I'm going to start creating folders for teams. So just to show you, I'm going to have team one. We'll just do one team. Okay, so, and then I'd have team two, team three, etc., depending on how many teams I need. We typically do projects in teams of 3 and 4. Okay. So again, I would have a folder for each team. And then in the sharing, and again, this takes a little bit of setup. Again, by default, there's that whole class gets access to that team folder. And now in this case, I do not want that. I only want the students that have enrolled. Or sorry, that are assigned to that team. So what I'm going to do is first remove this team. All right. And then what I need to do is I need to add each student individually. So I need to go back because you know what? I didn't note who the teams, who my students were. Well, I know I got Lynn here, so we'll do NFB Learn 834. Now this takes a little bit, so I'm going to go NFB, oops, NFB. Oh, just got to delete NFB. Now what happens is it's a live pull down box. So I'm going to type in NFB. So you can see it takes a little bit of time. And you can only get so far, but now I get to NFB Learn, I should be able to scroll down. And I think it was 834, right? So these are going to be, all right. So again, if Michael was on that team, I select, I'm going to give them, full control and share, again, if there was any existing subfolders, which there isn't in this case, but I might just select that anyway. So let's share that. And let's say I've got also, I saw 820 with someone who also just registered NFB. Again, it just takes a little bit because it's a live pull down. You can type in the first couple letters and then. So certainly if you have any assistants in your course, this would be great to show them how to, teaching assistants, how to maybe set this up. But you can see, you know, you're going to give yourself a little bit of time to set up these teams. Okay, so in this case, let's just say there's the two students, NFB 820 and NFB 834. Okay. And so I know not everyone's going to be able to see that, but certainly for those two students, you're going to be able to see that you now have access to the team folders. Everybody else at this point will be able to see team 2. So I encourage you to kind of take a look at it just because I have not removed the team access from that. All right. Okay, so I'm just looking at where we are. All right, so we're going to do a real quick exercise here because again, I just wanted to give folks a flavor of working as a student, saving files and seeing files. What we're going to do now is I'm going to invite you all. I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation. And, you know, I've created the profiles live for you in the folder, so hopefully you could see how that works. Now, what I'd like to do is just as a sample exercise, what I've done is I've taken an exercise that was created by Nancy and Nitin, Kale, and it's inside inside the Practical Analytics textbook. And I've just given you the first couple pages and a couple of samples for us to do together. So this is not the full exercise. It's not the full data set, but I just wanted to give you a bit of a teaser because this is this is proprietary information. I wanted to give you a teaser for what's involved in there. And then if we have a chance to do a exercise, that'd be great. So the sample exercise, and again, you can link right to the exercise, or if you already have access to the Dropbox, I just wanted to bring it up and show you a little bit about the great work that Nancy and Nitin have done. Our students love using their exercises, and I do as a faculty. But I don't have all the details in there and all the instructions because, again, this is proprietary. I just want to tease you with it. So if we open up that exercise, whoops. Let me just make sure I've got the right one here. No, I just got to go back here. Just give me a sec. Where's my, there it is there. Okay, so this is a typical layout of an exercise that's created within, excuse me, the practical analytics. So what we're giving are learning objectives. What are the different activities that students are doing? And of course, this is very thorough. This is a visualization. So chapter 6.2 is on visualizations. And we can see we have them using the models, creating stories, using geomapping, calculating, creating calculated measures, filters, time series, conditional formatting, lots of great things. So the prerequisites in terms of what are the models and data that you're going to use, and then again, access to the client. A little bit of background here. So again, I'm not going to have an opportunity to go through all of this, but what I want to bring you to is, how this is really set up to help the student understand what we're doing, what is the process, some background information, understand the context of the data, and then this idea in SAP Analytics Cloud, what we do is okay, great. What we do is we create stories, and we'll show you that. Okay, so then what will happen is after Nancy and Nitin have walked you through basically the setup and how you get started, they'll walk the students through almost step by step on creating every visualization. So this particular exercise in totality, I think, is about 45 pages. All I've done is stripped out the how to do each visualization. And as some experienced faculty, I just thought if any of you want to give this a try, one of the ways that we can have students excuse me, share their results is to ask them questions about their analysis. And so one way to facilitate the analytics is to ask the students the final result. What customers produce the highest revenue, right? Between these two time periods, what's the top selling product and what's a trend? So the students would then have to interpret what measures, what dimensions, and then what chart type or visualization type would best represent that particular question. Excuse me. So I think we have a little bit of time, but just a short period of time to kind of look at one of those exercises. So I'm going to pop in as a student, and this is not to train you on SAC, but just to quickly show you how to use the tool or a tool in action, I guess I should say. Excuse me. Similar to Sarah, I think I'm needing a break soon. Okay, so I'm back as my student. And now I want to do that exercise that Stephen just launched that said, who is the top selling customer from 2011 to 2023? Okay, so to do that, as a student, I'm going to come back to my files, and I'm just going to sit here. Now, to launch the actual analytics tool, I'm going to go over to my left-hand panel and select stories. And we're going to create one quick story. We're going to share it, and that's going to be about it. So I'm going to hit stories. I'd like us to use the canvas in this case, which gives us basically gives us a canvas to put our visualizations in. Would recommend to use the optimized design experience. And if you kind of recall Nancy's instructions, do follow us through these steps. So now we are, whoop, and again, there's some what's new in here. I'm just going to close that. Okay, so now what we have is this is the standard kind of SAC view for visualizations. And so we have a left panel, a right panel for designing, and the middle panel is our canvas landscape. So if I want to insert a chart, I'm just going to grab a chart. I'm going to throw it in here. Now, as soon as I throw in a chart, what happens is this SAC then says, well, what data set do you want to use? So we're going to open up our data set for our course. This is exercise data from the textbook. So we're going to go into the exercise data. Okay, and then what we see here is the GB analytics model. This is a model that I've shared with students prior um, either shared or moved it to this folder. So I can select that as a student. And so again, the data's in here as well as maybe any calculated measures or calculations, etc. On the right-hand side, and just really quickly, we're looking at sales by customer. So I'm going to use my customer dimension, only one dimension. This is going to be very simple. I'm going to come down to my measures. My measure that we're asked for is what was the top revenue in US dollars. So we're going to select that. As we start building our visualization, you can see within the landscape that the visualization is shown to us. And basically, just to make this a little bit nicer, what I'm going to do is I can either sort this or rank it depending. I might just do a ranking just because we're just asked for the top customer. And so I don't really need to know all the customers yet. So I'm just going to do a top N. Let's do the top 5. Let's apply that. And again, it's sorted. So I have my answer. Now, of course, this is not a fully fleshed out visualization, but just wanting to give you a feel for the students creating a visualization and a story. So now that I've got a story, I can add more charts to this canvas. This is on page 1. I can add second pages if I have multitudes of visualizations for an exercise. So you're not constrained in terms of, again, what landscape you have to build your visualization stories. Now, to save this, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to save. And when we save this, this is going to get saved in our folders. And I want you to save this within your personal folder that, again, a faculty could access if again, they wanted to see the work, but that becomes your repository. So I'm going to open up NFB 814. I'm going to go into student accounts. And what we can now see is there's very few accounts that I can see in there, right? Because people have started unsharing, right? So what I would do is then find, oh, and I see Walter's here. Hey, Walter. So I can find my account, and then I can save my story. I can save my story in there. Okay. All right. And then as a faculty, I can then access that and see that. All right. So again, I know this wasn't a lot of that hands-on in SAC, but I wanted to get us there. Okay. So encourage you if you were just doing a quick analytics and if you want to save it, that's great. Okay. So let's see where we're at. All right. So in terms of saving and submitting work, really quick, first and foremost, by sharing those folders with faculty, faculty can take a look at that. Now, you as a faculty may not want to have to go individually into each folder and file. That can be quite arduous. So I may not recommend that as the way to submit work, but it's certainly ways that you can support the students. Or if you just want to even verify the work, sometimes we do that. I like to open up the hood. And again, I can go in and take a look and actually see the data story within the course and student folders. Okay. Now, what we do as faculty at Conestoga, a couple different things. You saw the portfolio profile. So as part of that portfolio project, what Sarah has is students do screen captures of the artifacts. So an example of the visualization, an example of the data quality audit in Excel, etc. So we can use artifacts. Students can submit PowerPoint out of SAC. You can save as a PowerPoint, or you can screen capture and use your visualizations, or you can do the same thing in a PDF. The other way to submit assignment work, and these kinds of questions are incorporated into the practical analytics material that's available for you as a faculty, the faculty material. What Nancy and Nitin have set up is for each exercise, they have questions that need to be answered. Students are to do screen prints and submit these. Okay, so just showing the answer allows Nancy and Nitin to show that. So this gets us to the end of our technical issues. What we hope we've given you at least a demonstration and some materials you can go back on, which is, how to order your client, right? How to get the students set up, how to set up your course, your team, and your exam file structures, your own faculty and course structures. And again, the key thing is no additional software support, and you get great support from our UCCs and from our peers. So we're going to move on. I'm just going to keep going. And one of the top barrier that you as attendees specified was an educator's knowledge and skills gap. And so what I'd like to do is present to you ways in which faculty and students as well can get access to learning about SAC. In addition to coming to sessions like today. So we're going to look at the Learning Hub. If you haven't looked at that before, that's a great tool. Certifications, learning journeys, courses, and support. So the first thing, thanks, Kate. The first thing is under SAP training and certification, and again, through SAP, there are a list of different pathways, free courses, there's certifications and additional resources. So again, this is a quick summary of those. And essentially preparing students to become data analysts. So you've got some discovery, some exploring, some academic pieces, and then some deep dives and certification as well. So there is a certification for a data analyst, SAP Analytics Cloud. So in terms of SAP Analytics Cloud courses, again, I've given you a QR code for this, but essentially within that structure that allows yourself as faculty, but as well as students can get access to some of the SAP learning journeys and learning courses. And so one example of that I'd like to show you is that through the Learning Hub, SAP has set up what they call learning journeys. A learning journey is a series of learning exercises or specific exercises brought together that provide a full topic. So here is the recommended SAC learning journey, which includes an introduction to SAP Analytics Cloud, the cloud product overview, guided playlists, and some tutorials, and a getting started guide. So these are to give you an idea, and again, a link to, where do you get access to this? And both you and your students can have access. As we saw earlier in our instructional plan, we incorporate some of the SAP learning journeys for students to prepare, if they do, ahead of class, right? We talked about the challenges of that. But again, these are great exercises, and we definitely encourage you to explore them. I encourage all my faculty to use these. In terms of the SAP certification, again, data analyst, Analytics Cloud, 60 questions, 70% cut score. Now, at Conestoga, we have not moved our students nor our faculty towards this, but we may consider this in the future. Again, here's the QR code for that. So again, you can check that out in your own time and consider, does that make sense for your faculty team or your students? So what we hope we showed is some additional learnings for both you and your students to overcome the education knowledge and gap. We gave you at least some indication of what's available in the SAC training and certification. I don't want you to forget about Episteme Press and the materials they have to support you. Within there as well, Nancy Jones's video series on teaching with SAC is incredible. And thank you to Nancy. Again, we watched her videos to help prepare us for this. There's also SAC videos in LinkedIn Learning, and don't forget about the EY academic resources, which are not specific to SAC, but can complement that analytics mindset. All right, and I think that brings us to close to the end and to our last challenge, which is overcoming that inertia to get started with SAC. And so I'm going to hand this back over to Sarah. And
Thank
if
you,
you want to
Stephen.
show your show, you're welcome, Sarah.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I hope I'm sharing. Someone will let me know if I'm not. Do do we see my screen? I think so.
Sarah, can you
Okay,
move,
so
sorry, Sarah, can you move your screen forward? No, then I think I'm sharing still.
oh, so I just moved back. Do we see
Okay.
this?
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yep.
great. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. Um, Thank you for that, Stephen. Thanks for walking us through that. I appreciate that. So you're right. One of the two biggest call outs were actually around the educator's knowledge and skills gap, which Stephen, you did a great job of explaining that to us, as well as the time constraints. And we talked about that earlier. And then the third biggest challenge that folks foresee is around change inertia. So we do have a few ideas around that. So the very first thing that I think we would recommend is actually what our call to action is, and that is to go ahead and adopt the visualization unit that we've just described and the resources that we've shared. Go ahead and adopt that single learning unit into one of your own courses. So most analytics courses have some component that refers to a visualization unit. So you could just go ahead and drop in that unit into your own course. And so that so really to overcome that barrier, you can do that. You can actually be the change that you want to see, and you can go ahead and borrow, adopt, refine, update, and so on, any or all of the materials that we share, and go ahead and incorporate that into your own course. You can also invite your colleagues to come and complete some of the training with you. Oftentimes, when we work together with our colleagues and we go through the same training, when we're done that training or as part of that training, you can reflect and chat with your colleagues about what you learned, and you can support each other. Um, and you can also invite, after attending this session and after you have the course materials, you could invite your colleagues to a working group to take a look at the material that we've shared, and in your colleague working group, decide, is this something that anyone wants to adopt? Are there things that you would like to change? Would you like to use it as it is? Would you like to add things, incorporate parts of it? So I think just starting that conversation with your colleagues and really just jump in and give it a shot. Try it for a week or two, and sort of drop that unit in and see how you do with it. Oftentimes when we try something, we learn if it works well for us or what we would like to improve on for next time.
Absolutely. And if I could just add, Sarah,
Yeah.
it may not even have to go as far as an entire unit. It could just be an exercise. You could just try an exercise with the students, whether it's the visualization project maybe that Sarah and I have created, you could adopt some of that and put it in your class. So even if it's a unit is too much, start with an exercise. You don't have to integrate it into your entire course from day one. And that's what we've done, because when we started, SAC wasn't even available. We were using Lumira, which was a desktop app, which had a lot of challenges because, again, students in our college had to install it, and which, as a faculty can be very overwhelming, especially if you have a large number of students. Reminded today when, on the webinar, we're not able to help with all the technical challenges. So again, I just thought I'd offer that. Try one assignment or one unit, as Sarah was mentioning. I just also wanted to add about this collaboration. This is something that I think has also led to success at Conestoga College. And I'll give an example of how we've now looked at integrating business builders, which is going to be a great session for you this week. If you haven't had access to business builders, the analytics simulation game, highly recommend it. Although we may not have indicated it, Sarah has now integrated that into the Management 2230 just as a one class exercise that she uses. So again, it augments but doesn't replace. And the way we got started was last summer, I myself as the coordinator hosted a session with our analytics faculty to look at business builders, to play the game. And through that, a couple of the faculty have now started to use it, but again, just as an in-class exercise, and this may turn into something bigger as we go along. So I just wanted to reinforce that, Sarah, that most recently, we got together with yourself, Brian, Kevin, and other faculty to look at business builders. And then I'm there to support and encourage. So
Mhm.
great.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah,
for adding that because
you're welcome.
as a faculty considering making changes to a course, it's very intimidating. And we're a little, I think it's resistance to change is normal. And so we might be a little bit reluctant, but the idea of you don't have to redo your entire course. You can sort of drop this in, try it for 1 week, and it's a low stakes way for professors to experiment. Yeah, so I really appreciated that session.
Yeah. And how do business builders, well, I should also mention the second thing that also happened is when Sarah ran business builders in her class, I was available to come in and just help for that first time. And I offer that as a coordinator for my faculty that use ERP Sim or any tool, because certainly the first time you use it, like today, the first time I've ever used Zoom webinar, something happens, right? My audio doesn't work. So again, it's just nice to have support in class if you can. Um, yeah.
That was very helpful, Stephen. I appreciated
Mhm.
that you were able to join that class. And then the part of the class where students were doing the applied learning, there were two of us who were able to circulate around and support the student learning. So that really did work very well.
Yeah. And so
So
Sarah's experience will then become the template that we use when other faculty are looking, because we had a chance also to touch bases after that class, what worked, what didn't, what would we do different? Because there's always something that you would want to look to improve. So great.
okay, so thanks very
Yeah.
much, Stephen. So
Okay.
let's we're actually we're actually getting ever closer to the
Yeah.
end of our presentation, and we'll have some time
Mhm.
for question and answer as well. So I think at this point we have now provided our solutions, the things that we've learned along the way, and our recommendations to dealing with these barriers and so that's great. One thing I would like to do is share with everyone a link. This has been shared earlier, but I think I moved through it pretty quickly, and I think the password wasn't immediately available. So I'm going to pause here. This is a Dropbox that Stephen and I have created and curated with materials that we're happy to share with you. You're welcome to use them, to modify them as you wish, use parts of them, use them as inspiration for your own work, use them as you see fit. I will say that during our webinar, there was a request for a link to Nancy's videos. If those are
Oh,
not in that
mhm.
Dropbox, we'll add them after this session. Just bear with
Absolutely.
us
Yeah. That
after
would be
we
great.
wrap up today. And so we're happy to share these
Mhm.
resources with you. And I think that will go a long way to closing that time
Mhm.
constraint barrier because we all have just a very limited number of working hours in the day. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah.
so we're happy to share that with
Which is
you.
great. Yeah.
Go
And
ahead,
I
Stephen.
think I wanted to mention as well, Sarah, and this takes us back, to your to our instructional plan for the course. But I also wanted to mention that one of the last group assignment we have in that course is a dashboard assignment.
Mm,
And in our analytics courses, the context for that dashboard assignment changes based on the students, because at our college, our supply chain students take courses together, accounting students, etc. So that a lot, so when I run an analytics course, it may just have supply chain students. And one of the things I wanted to mention was that we look to implementing industry reporting and analytics frameworks in our projects. So for example, with our dashboard project, in this course, we use the SCORE model, the SCOR SCORE model developed by ASCM, which is a way to analyze supply chain performance through a hierarchical, multidimensional framework. So that's one of the learning outcomes that we try to incorporate is, what are some of those, again, standard frameworks and give students exposure to that. So just thought I'd mention that a little call out there, Sarah, in terms of that.
Thanks, Stephen.
Great.
So, with that said, I guess what Stephen and I would like to invite each of you to do is to consider incorporating SAC into at least one of your units and to have a learning outcome around that. And I hope that you will. I hope that you'll be confident enough to do that and that you'll be able to use the materials that we've provided. And uh, oh, sorry, I see that there's a technical glitch here. There was a poll that I was going to ask
Oh,
folks about how many folks would um, oh, talk about one of those glitches, Stephen. I
okay.
thought I had created a poll about
Oh,
how many people would actually use a visualization unit in their next or in one of their courses. So I don't have a Zoom
oh,
poll
okay.
set up, but here's the
Okay.
question that I'm going to ask. So for all of the attendees, would you consider adopting SAC visualization unit into your course? And what I'll try to do, let's just see, could we have a show of hands? We'll kind of go a little old school,
Show of
but
hands, or should we have people chat it?
yeah,
Just chat
sure.
us which one of those. Yes, definitely, possibly,
Sure.
not sure.
Good idea, Stephen.
Is that
Good
okay? Then,
collaboration.
then we can see it in the chat. So if you just want to chat to us, are you going to do it possibly? And if you're not sure, possible, if you want to follow up with a little bit of, what else could you use to support you? Maybe throw that in there. And again, that could be something Sarah and I follow up with or use to enhance, hopefully the next session that we're able to host with you guys. Oh, very nice.
That's great. Well, thanks for being flexible and
Yeah,
in a different
thanks.
way. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I see some people use, I can see there, Michael says he uses, yeah, Power BI. Yeah. And so again, as we mentioned, right, we use SAC and Power BI because coming back to it, I'm sure you all appreciate this. And Sarah pointed this out in the one reflection that these are transferable skills, right? If I can use SAC, Tableau shouldn't be a problem, right? Because there's going to be a lot of similarities between those softwares. So again, the transferable skill is learning software, and then again, the vernacular around visualization and analytics tools, right? Measures, dimensions, hierarchies, filters, all groupings, all those things. All great. And some people have done business builders as well, so that's awesome. That's awesome.
great.
Well, again, thanks everyone for sharing that. Great. Should we
So,
go to the next slide then?
yep, at this point, we have time for any questions, any
Mhm.
kind of Q&A. We don't have a backlog of Q&A at this point,
Right,
so
right.
we've been responding sort of as we go, but we could
Mhm.
open the floor now if there are questions. And at this point, you could use the chat or the Q&A function.
And I do just want to call out the folks from the UCCs, Walter and Sandy. Thanks for also helping support today because Walter sent out a couple links. And again, what I really love about the whole SAP University Alliance environment is we've got each other's backs. We all help each other, and this is just an example of that. So for those of you who haven't, kind of stepped into the SAP tools, you're well supported. I hope you can see that today. I know I feel it. So it's less risky. Great. So again,
So,
that's what I'll say.
Stephen, I'm going to go off script a little bit.
Yeah.
I hope I hope I don't get in trouble after, but we have a few minutes,
Mhm.
and I have prepared a reflection for participants who are willing to share their feedback with us. And since we
Okay.
have a little bit of time, I think I'll share that now. Please, if folks still have Q&A and questions,
Oh,
feel
please.
free to
Yeah.
ask. But that's what I'm going to do right now, and I'm going to drop this in. Can you see the session reflection now that I'm sharing?
I can see. Yeah.
Okay, so there
Could
is
you? Mhm.
a QR code there, and I would ask if people would take the time to scan that. You can use your phone. This is not an incredibly in-depth survey, so you could probably get by with your phone. You don't necessarily need to type, although you can type if you prefer. And so there's just a few questions that I'm going to ask, and this is to inform Stephen and I. So this is sort of your reflection about how this session went, and we are open to feedback, so that if we're invited to deliver a similar presentation in future, we'd love to use the feedback to improve or to understand what worked really well. So I'm going to click next screen, but there is a barcode. So if you're kind of a little bit late or behind, you can still scan that code. So if you could share, what are your main takeaways from today? So what will you take away or take with you from today's session? And Stephen, if there's any Q&A, feel free to kind of jump in and sort of speak to
Yeah. Yeah. So there was
anytime.
one question around the link, the higher education US 10 SAP Analytics Cloud link. Is that for just this classroom, for the training? So the best way to reply to that from my perspective, although the UCCs may want to also clarify, but what I always recommend is you order the client from the UCC and you will be provided with the URL. I'm not sure if they're always all the same, and they may be, but so I would suggest that that link for right now is for today's session. Okay. Um, so I hope that helps out. Shilpa? Great. I also will chat out because Sarah had mentioned, I did not share my own email address, but if anyone wants to reach out to me individually, I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have. And again, if you do have questions, please chat them or put them in the Q&A. We're happy to address those.
Stephen, I am going to follow in your footsteps as usual and share my email as well.
Um, and folks may have it because you did send out the invites, and thank you for that, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Great. Right, I don't see, the link is always the same, but I concur. Yeah, okay. So Sandy, thanks, Sandy. I just confirmed that that link general is always the same. So back to the initial link to get you into SAC. But again, who knows whether over time Mandiberg may change things. So again, I always just say, you know what? They always send the link when you receive your client. So just make sure you use that. Great. And some folks, and you might see this in the chat, are all confirming how much support our UCCs in Milwaukee, in North America, Milwaukee and Chico both give us. Calling out Sandy, Jamie, Walter, Jared, Tom, absolutely. And again, you're very welcome.
I'm going to move on to the next slide in our survey. I hope folks have had enough time.
Okay.
I'm
And again,
wondering if you'll share,
mhm.
and I did hide the responses, so you don't have to
Okay.
share with everyone. Stephen and I will look at this after.
Thanks.
What
Yeah.
was unclear? So was there
Mm-hmm.
anything in today's session that you thought maybe was a little unclear, didn't quite land well?
Yeah.
It's okay. We're going to take this, as constructive criticism. So don't worry about our feelings, especially since we're not sharing it with everyone.
Yeah. And again, we can possibly respond to some of these as well and update and because again, we certainly want the PowerPoint slides and what we provided you with as reference material you can use, right? That's why we spent quite a bit of time curating the slides to give you that. So hoping that does do the trick a bit. You're welcome, Henri. Thank you very much. So we'll just hang out here till close, I guess, till we get through the rest of the questions. And again, if anyone has any questions, chat them, Q&A.
Yeah, thanks to the folks who are kind of sticking around to provide us with feedback. It's much appreciated.
Yeah, greatly appreciate it. And while we're here too, I also want to give a shout out and thank Evan for inviting Sarah and I to participate. Hope we lived up to your standards, Evan, and provided a quality webinar that meets SAP's expectations as well. We really enjoyed ourselves, and we hope to do this again.
Stephen, there's a question in the chat that you might want to speak to. Jan asks, how to delete the students after assigning them into teams for them to correspond with the instructor individually.
Okay, how to delete the students after assigning them into a team. So let me just go back into I guess I might need to, can I quickly share, Sarah? Is that okay?
I'll move us to the next question.
Okay.
And then, oops, now I see this barcode's in the way. Rats. Well, hopefully you can see it on your own device. So we'll move to this next question, and I'll hide the responses. And then why don't you go ahead and share, Stephen?
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So, just gotta, oops. Sorry, just lost my Zoom toolbar for a sec. There we go.
I stopped if that helps.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sharing my wrong screen. So let's see if I can walk through that question. So the first question is about, I believe I'm interpreting it where what we want to do is we've maybe assigned a student to the wrong team or want to unassign them. So, oops, let me go back. So under the dashboard assignment, so that's where we'd created those teams. Again, we've got the 3 folders, one for the model and one for each team. So if I go into team 2, let's say, for example, whoops, I don't need to go in there. Sorry, there's no files. Sorry. If I adjust the shares of team 2 or team 1, this is where I could essentially remove a student from a team. What I'm essentially doing is removing the sharing so they can't get access to it. So from that perspective, what I would do is if let's say I mistakenly assigned student or ID 834, what I would do is go into that team and remove them. If there's already work done in that folder, remember all that work would have inherited that student's share already. So again, if we're removing them from the entire team, I would always recommend to specify, remove their share from any of the either subfolders or files that have already been created. Given the context that, again, they've been assigned to the wrong team and maybe shouldn't have access. Okay. Now, I know that's the first part of the question. I'm not sure if I understood the second part which was, Sarah, can you just read that again? Something about connecting with the faculty? I'm not sure.
How to delete the students after assigning them into teams
So hopefully
for
I've done that.
them to correspond with the instructor individually.
So now let me just show again, and maybe this isn't what we would want, but I just wanted to show you as the faculty, since I created the team, whoops, I keep going into the folder rather than sharing. when I look at the share, because I created the team folders, I am the owner, which then means again, I will have access by default to any subfolders or documents or files created within that student team folder, unless they remove me. But again, this is more for me to be able to support the students, because in the submission, I'm not going to be going into everybody's folder to take a look at their files. So, we'll again have them perform some kind of output, either a presentation, a PDF, or an answer sheet. I hope that helps. Again, if you'd like to ask again, if I didn't answer that. Just coming back to the questions here.
Well, Stephen, I would say if there are no more questions,
there
let's
is
wrap.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
Just
is there?
before I do have
Yeah.
one quick question. I guess I could have answered it online, but is this access username and password temporary? We've got it for the semester. So, if you want to use that student access to, within that, please do so. I would just ask, as we ask our students, if you could remove your files if you use it. But yes, this client, I think I've ordered it until let me just check. And then we can wrap up, I think, Sarah. So I just wanted to see when we ordered the client till, but I usually good for the whole semester. I think it's good for the rest of the summer. And I don't mind keeping it open. But again, you have a student account. So if anyone's looking to play around, you can use that student access. Unless now Sandy may come back and say no, Stephen, but yeah, great. Sorry, Sarah, that was the only open question.
Okay, well, that's
All right.
great. So I
Oh,
think that probably brings us to the conclusion of our presentation. Stephen and I can sort of hang back for a couple minutes to see if there are any questions. Stephen, I'd like to thank you for inviting me to participate with you today. I think it was an excellent opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of that. And thanks to the audience who were able to bear with us and appreciate that very much. I think it was a great session. So thanks to everyone.
all right. Well, and thank you for participating, Sarah, and again, Evan, and everyone. Nancy, thanks for all your great work to set us up. And hopefully we've just continued to, do that for the next group of SAC leaders. Sandy also chatted out that you're happy to use the student accounts for the summer. Okay, great. And thanks everyone. Great. Yeah, we'll just hang out right till 1, I think. And if anyone's got any questions or wants to chat with us after, please.
Stephen, I think I have you sharing your screen somehow,
Oh, do
so
I? Yeah,
apologies for
I think I
that.
might be. Yeah.
Well, I did that, I think.
Stop sharing here. Right. All right. Thanks, Sandy. Have a great day yourself. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Kate, was there anyone with their hands up? Is there something?
Well, there was. Vaughn.
Yes,
Oh,
Vaughn still has his hand up.
yeah. Vaughn, would you be able to chat your message, or you still have something unanswered? There's Vaughn. Awesome. Hey, Vaughn. Um, Kate, are you able to open up Vaughn to be able to speak with us?
I did put a request in, yes.
Oh, okay, great. So,
Yes.
Vaughn, if you're still there, we're happy to answer any question you might have. It's nice to see
Oh,
you.
I think I had my hand raised from when you was asking a question.
Oh, right. When
Uh,
we said Do you mind? Can I ask you to use SAC right now, Vaughn, or
I do. SACC, you're talking about this right here, this component?
the Analytics Cloud? Yes. Are you currently
Yeah,
using?
I'm not. I'm about to teach analytics for my first time official analytics class, but I used SAP in all of my courses and I downloaded the data. And I just started using
Yeah.
SAP Cloud Analytics last fall.
Awesome. Oh,
Yeah,
that's great. And how do you like it using it in your course?
I love it. I just wish I could import my own data.
Oh, okay. Like in what sense? Because I know I do like use my own. Like when you say your own data, is this like some data sets that
Or
you've
maybe this
created?
is different, but in the business builders, right? They have the
Oh,
platform where you can play the game, right?
yeah.
And but you can only access the data sets that are there. So
Guys, right within business builders,
yeah,
you're right. Yeah. Now, did you notice, Vaughn, that they have two more games coming out with different
I
data sets?
did. I went to the session last week.
Oh, did you? Good. And that's great. So maybe you should recommend your data set, send it off to HEC and say, hey, can we set up one of these as a scenario, eh?
Yeah, because what gets confusing is I use Tableau too as well, but if I could
Okay.
stay in the cloud analytics where I wouldn't confuse the students because it's similar navigation.
Yeah.
And but I bounce back and forth between the two, and I was like, oh, by the way, you can't use this for your final project. You
Mm,
because we can only use the data that's in there. But once we play the game, we download that and connect to Tableau, and then they have to
okay.
do visualizations in there.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So within that environment, right, with business builders, you're right, it's more controlled.
Yeah,
Within, the tenant we use, of course, we upload data, from different sources but that doesn't have the gamification of it, right? One of the things I do, and I know I was remiss not to mention this, and you may do this as well, Vaughn, is I've got the luxury that I have students that do business processes in one semester and analytics in the next. So guess what we do? We export all their ERP sim data and then we use it in the analytics course in the next semester. So the students are analyzing the heck out of the game. Because in the business
gotcha.
process course, we can only do a little bit of analysis. And so,
Right, gotcha.
oops. So that gives us, I noticed I just something on my shirt here
Okay.
provides us with that updated data every semester, right?
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks for chatting with us and have a great summer and good luck in the fall.
All right. Thanks a lot. Will you guys be sending out the recording and everything and
Do you
all the
mean,
links
yeah, okay.
and the PowerPoint?
Yeah, we definitely have the PowerPoint. I have to admit, Vaughn, we forgot to record this.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
I, I think it's
recorded.
being recorded. I think
Oh,
Kate
oh,
saved the day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Kate saved
it's
her
being
day. So yeah,
recorded.
we will. Oh, thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
So yes, Vaughn, we will share.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot, you guys, for
Thanks.
all your work.
Have a great day. You're
You
welcome.
too. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
All right. Yeah, hey,
Okay.
something on my shirt. That came out of my coffee there.
Okay, so I think it's time to call it to a
Okay.
close. I don't see any more
So,
questions, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day and
yeah.
enjoys the sessions this week.
Yeah, and thanks again, Sarah. And Kate, thank you very much for helping us. And it's really helped us with the organization. So great.
Absolutely.
All right,
Okay,
take
take
care.
care all.
Bye-bye.